What's going on, guys? Pronogo bringing you another Brood War modding, this time sort of more towards the mapping end of the tutorials. Today we're going to be looking at AI scripts, and there's been a lot of people who have been trying to use AI scripts, and based on a lack of knowledge and the fact that not really anything is documented with regards to their use, and sort of some of the framework stuff that you have to make sure that your map adheres to in order to make them used properly. There's a lot of confusion surrounding the subject, and it's something that a pal of mine and I have really delved into. His name is Nekron. Sometimes you'll see him called Shinzo or Bonehar. He's got all sorts of anime names, but the point is, he's been investigating AI pretty recently, pretty extensively, and I guess the same could be said about me, although he's gone a bit further into it than I have. But I should still be armed with enough knowledge to educate you guys on how to use AI scripts in your map. So first things first, if you don't already use it, you're going to want to get SCMDraft. And I'm going to show you how to get that. Just use your browser to go to stormcoastfortress.net, and the link will be in the description. It'll link you right to the most recent zip here, the zip file. You just download this. You don't need to install anything, although there is an installer if you prefer that. It's a little bit easier. You extract it out of the zip file and you put it somewhere. I'll go ahead and hit the download button, and we'll just open it up for demonstration purposes. And go ahead and you just drag this anywhere, and you double click the exe and it runs. That's all you need to worry about. So the reason why we're showing you that is just so that you know what you need to do to set up the advanced map editor. There's really not much setup. You just pull it out, you put it somewhere. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you get the Python modding suite. This is not because you're going to be doing any modding in this tutorial. It's just so that you have access to Blizzard's own campaign maps, because those aren't available by default. And this is one of the reasons why it's really good to have SCMDraft, because SCMDraft can open these compressed map files that are in the MPQs or Mopac files of the game itself. So using once the Python modding suite, which is available in the second link in the description, is downloaded and installed properly, there's an installation guide and everything in the same link. Just go ahead and open up PyMPQ, and then navigate to your StarCraft installation, either 1.16.1 or 1.20 remastered, whatever the case may be. Just grab your starcraft.mpq, and you should see something that looks like this, where you have campaign / Protoss, campaign / eventually, if we scroll far enough down, Terran. These are all of the WAV files are all of the sound effects, or like sound files in general, dialogues, etc. And the CHK files are the compressed Brood War maps, StarCraft and Brood War maps. So the reason why we're checking this stuff out here is so that we can actually have access to the original campaign maps. Now, I've already gotten these, but just to show you how you would do it as a first-time user, you hit this button over here. It says extract files. It's next to the minus sign, and you go ahead and extract them anywhere, and it will create a folder called campaign, and it mirrors the sort of file path that you saw in PyMPQ itself. So Protoss, Protoss01, started it, and scenario.chk. And you're going to want to use SCMDraft to open this file. So if you just installed SCMDraft, or your file associations are not correctly set, what you can do is you can double click on the scenario.chk, and a Windows dialog will pop up and ask you how you want to open this file. You just select SCMDraft from wherever you put the program. Don't worry if you don't see all of this stuff here. This is like my own personal projects. Default is the profile that you want to use with this. And now we're looking at in SCMDraft's own user interface, the first Protoss mission. And the reason why I want to show you this is because typically, with very few exceptions, Blizzard scripts at least work, right? They mine resources, they build units to attack, and they build units to defend with. And you know, there's a number of instances where they could be performing better, but typically at least their bases work properly. And this is like a major pain point for some of these new players and new custom content creators out there who want to get started with AI scripts, want to make their own campaigns or whatever the case may be. Here is this tutorial is designed to help you guys figure this out a little bit easier and reduce some of the veneer, like pull back the curtain a little bit so you can see that maybe it's not as complicated as maybe you thought. So one of the things that you can do with SCMDraft, and one of the other reasons why I always recommend it, is you can actually check out the Pathfinder regions, which are used by the AI to determine how many units to send to a location to defend it if the region is under attack. They are used to determine points where the units or the AI will mass their armies while they're preparing to attack. And also, one region will always be the target of an attack, so it will attack everything on the way to that region, and et cetera, et cetera. The regions are also used for pathfinding. That's why they're called Pathfinder regions. So over here, you just untick Use Defaults, and you click Pathfinder regions. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of doodads on this map, so there's not a whole lot of whatever would block pathing. But it will initially look rather intimidating. But I'll explain it to you. So these thick yellow lines here represent separate regions. And right now it's really easy to differentiate between different regions because they're all square blocks. But as you can see, we get closer into this edge, and suddenly there are more of these yellow lines in smaller spots. So this is like the size here. This is what I've just outlined, this top middle bit above the Vespine Geyser. This is like 2 or 3 times the size of this smaller region down here, and that's because of the way that the cliffs interact. And it's not really important to know why this happens or what the algorithm is, but these red lines indicate paths that the units can take to impassable regions, right? Because these cliffs are not passable. But whereas the green lines indicate paths to a region that the units can take. And typically units won't mess around with, you know, the edges of the map, so that's why you see that stuff. But you know, obviously over here you see that this region in the middle above these 2 hydralisks is connected to this cliff region where the ramp is, another cliff region over here that's impassable, and also a region where there's a doodad, which prevents it from, you know, considering this to be pathable. So it's useful for figuring out what in fact is pathable and what is not. Because I'm going to see if I can find an example here. First of all, one thing that's really important to note is that AI do not see buildings or other units as pathing blockers. So they will not dynamically consider regions pathable or unpathable. Like, for example, if we were to build a factory and a bunch of supply depots in this area, it's not going to change the regions in terms of how big or small they are, and it's not going to set them to an unpathable manner. So this actually would do nothing. Like, say we actually place a bunch of Vespine geysers. These are considered a structure by the game, so the game doesn't see them. So even though the AI cannot pass through this area, they would still try to. And even if we made it so that there were geysers everywhere in this whole area, it would prevent you from being able to, like, obviously you would not be able to successfully reach that area, but the AI could try to do it and then get stuck. In addition, sometimes terrain will not dynamic or like will incorrectly, maybe it's not really incorrect based on the nature of the algorithm, but it is a little dumb sometimes. Like, okay, I've just created one here. So, or I'm in the process of creating one. Let's see. So if we just we keep messing around with this, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. So this region here, maybe it won't be. I guess it's hard to tell. An easier example is to open up the to slay the beast. So I'll go ahead and do that because that's a very easy example of what you can go in and find in Blizzard's own maps. So let's do that. Zerg 8. Zerg here. Okay, here we are. So this is the final map, or not the final map, not even the penultimate map. It's 2 maps away from the end of the Brood War campaign. So this is what I'm talking about right here. Ashwold is notorious for this kind of stuff. So the AI would theoretically consider what I'm about to... I'll untick it so it's easier to see. The AI would consider where I'm about to place these Marines as completely pathable and would try to drop units here. In this area, the AI could theoretically try to drop units here, try to amass an attack force here, and put all of their units in one of these regions. And it's because they aren't technically impathable. And you could technically bring a unit there. And even if you put a missile turret here, that's still technically... The AI doesn't see buildings, because they can be dynamically removed or created, because they can be built by other AI or the players. So obviously the game isn't advanced enough to check that, or the developers didn't put that check in there. So the AI won't see them for the purposes of calculating pathfinding. So this is just to illustrate the importance of checking your regions, to making sure that all of these regions that have green lines going around them are actually connected. And also to just sort of understand how the AI interprets them. So let's take a look at some of the bases. Like, this is a base area where, as you can see over here, the UED base here is pretty clearly defined. There's minerals in a nice, neat area. There's a geyser here, and none of the regions are impathable. There's not really any problems with that pathfinding would run into as a result of these regions. So in this area, as long as there's a location, which there is, we'll turn off Pathfinder Regions so you can see this, that as long as there's a location, an area town script will run here. A start town script, a regular town script, not an area town, would also run here. And there's a very big difference between start town and area town scripts. It's actually a very small difference in terms of the code, since it's just a difference between start town and start area town. But on a functional level, every AI player needs one town to work. Whereas when it comes to area towns, you can have as many area towns as you want within some reasonable limit. So when you see something like this, you want to check the regions to make sure that when you are messing around with your own map, you want to check your regions and make sure that the regions are presented in such a way that the AI won't have problems mining minerals. And like, even in this case, I would actually suggest that you don't have a base that's quite so cluttered. I would probably want to remove like some of these buildings or spread them around a little bit. But obviously it works because this is a Blizzard map, and there's no issues with that particular script. So what does this mean for our own missions? Well, I will show you an example from one of my own campaigns in Consummate, which you may have heard of before, but it doesn't matter if you have or have not. Let's go ahead and open up a different copy of SCMDraft with the proper MPQ loaded so that the terrain doesn't look like a strange new art painting. What do they call those? Modern art. Yeah, that's it. We don't want modern art. So let's open the second map. It's pretty tame in this regard. So in this second map of In Consummate, we can check the regions here. And you can see that the AI shouldn't have a problem with its regions around this main base. So basically, just checking your regions is important, is what I'm saying. Now, you don't have to follow Blizzard to a T, but you should be on the lookout for... I mean, it's stuff like this. Like, I didn't even notice this on my first look at it. Like, that's a region. This tiny little thing that's one box wide, this is a region. So this could be considered the spot where they would all mass up to attack. And, you know, sometimes you get really goofy stuff like this, and the only solution is just to try and rework the terrain a little bit, or, like, place an impassable doodad there. And now it won't be a region. Now we've connected that bit of ground to this region. But without it, it turns into its own region. You know, that it's just that goofy stuff. I mean, I guess technically it might still be considered a region, but the idea is that it's not pathable. So it won't be considered for massing attacks, and et cetera, et cetera. So that would be like how you would fix something like that. Now, the other thing to consider when you're creating your own maps is location placement. Now, it's kind of hard to see because I use a million locations for everything. But let's say we're looking at this AI location, it's just wrapped around the main building or start location. It doesn't have to be on or over the start location or over the main building. As you'll see if you open up Shadow Hunters, that seems like it would be conventional common sense knowledge, but it's not the case. You have a lot of instances where Blizzard, well, I guess not maybe a lot, but a few instances where Blizzard would use start locations or AI locations over random bits of terrain, like over nothing, and it would still work somehow. But in general, for the sake of safety, I would always have you run the town script location, the main town location, over the main structure here. Now, both of the red player and the blue player both have main towns. They don't have any expansions. However, the yellow player has a lot of expansions. There's 2 towns that happen at the same time. So let me find the AI location here. Where is it? It's somewhere, I'm sure. Yeah, AI Outpost B. So this location, let's just delete everything else so you guys can see it a little bit better. So here we are. We've got this location is the location in which I run the AI script for this area. And for this area, it's... Oh, this is actually its main here. So this is even easier to show you the disparity. So let's go ahead and delete all these locations so that they're a little bit easier to take a look at. Just bear with me for 1 second here. Okay, so now we can see a pretty big disparity. The main town is just wrapped over the Nexus. The not main town, the area town or expansion town, whatever you want to call it, is wrapped over all of the buildings that you want that town to own. So what that means is if the town is supposed to defend itself, if the player is supposed to defend itself, then anything in a town will be considered for defense. And any region that has a building in it will be considered for defense as long as it's owned by a town. So for example, if I take this photon cannon and I put it over here, say this hatchery doodad wasn't there, now this photon cannon will most likely not be attached to this town. Maybe it will just because of how close it is to the main location, but probably not. So that's an example where if I attack this with Mutalisks, they aren't going to send scouts at me to defend, or Dragoons, or whatever the case may be, whatever it would send normally if I attacked the Forge, for example, with Mutalisks, because the Forge is part of the main town. So this is just another example of how the AI functions and what you need to do for setting up your AI. So this is what I want you guys to do, is I want you guys to take whatever AI you've been working on, or if you haven't been working on it and you want to try this out, make a quick base. Don't bother really, doodadding it. That's not super necessary. What I would recommend you do is just take a look at, what I've shown you here. Take a look at some of Blizzard's own maps now that you have the tools to do so, and check out the way that they structured their bases. Throw down your base in a somewhat similar fashion, just so that, the idea is that you don't have to replicate Blizzard completely, but if you do it at first, you can learn sort of the things that you should look out for. And that's what I would do. I would try and emulate a base that they had with all the same structures, with the same exact AI script, and with the same location sort of layout there, and make sure it's a main town script, because obviously if it's an area town script, it needs a main town as well. So if you're going to include an area town, just make sure to remember to include a main town. And you can determine this because in the triggers, I'm pretty sure they have... let's quickly find... no, I guess they just say town A, town B. So it's it's a little bit more tricky to figure that out then. But if you do want to figure it out yourself, you can go over to Pi AI, and apparently it may do that to you. And then just hit this blue button here, open default scripts, and then you can find these sort of more information on them. You don't have to mod these, you don't have to change anything about this stuff, but it will help you tell, if you see start area town, okay, then that is not a main town, right? Start area town, not a main town. But if we do, this is also start area town, over my defenders maybe is a, yeah, this is, so now you see start town, so now you know, okay, this is a town. So it's a way to see which script is actually proper for a main base. And you can also use PyAI to look at which script is which, what they call for. So the way that it works is if you're trying to use say I want to use this bottom Zerg town. Well, it's a start town, so I can use it. Now, what does it call for? It's going to try to build 1 hatchery and 5 drones. So all I need for this town to work properly is, well, it looks like it doesn't. I have to figure out what it wants to upgrade and what it wants to build for units, and then give it all the prerequisites for that. And then when I run this script, as long as it has money, it shouldn't hang up. So that's all I have to worry about. And you just give the AI money, you give the AI overlords or supply depots or pylons so that it's not supply capped, and it will have no problems. If the AI is supply capped, it will not research or upgrade. That is important. For whatever reason, that stops the AI from doing that stuff. So keep that in mind as well. But this is sort of what I'm saying, is like a lot of people have really weird misconceptions about AI, or they're having a lot of difficulty getting their AI up and running. So follow what Blizzard does. Replicate the exact bases that they do so that you don't have to worry about tech requirements or having the AI trying to build something that they can't. Follow what Blizzard does, follow their setup, and then run the same script that they run in the same sort of styles of locations. And then if you can do that, that's when okay, now I can start to experiment. And then you'll know if something goes wrong, what your last change was. And that would be how I would approach something like this. Obviously, if you have questions about general AI behaviors or whatever, you can divert to myself or Nekron. I'm sure he might be in the comments of this video if I referred him to it. So if I get a question that I can't answer, I'll ask him about it. So definitely ask your questions below. Obviously, this is a topic that is incredibly difficult to figure out 100% of the time and be 100% like, there's just not a lot of information out there is what I'm saying. So I hope that this sort of helped pull back the curtain a little bit, explain some useful topics to you with 100% certainty. And if you have further questions, like I said, ask below, and I will probably continue to produce AI related videos as they become necessary. I'm sure I'll do a whole series on AI modding itself, because it's quite a big sort of project. I'll also include a link to the scripts that can be used in campaign missions that Nekron has put together. They're like the toolbox scripts, and that will allow you to basically figure out what scripts might fit for your map or campaign or whatever. And maybe you can use them without using AI, like AI modding itself. You can still use Blizzard's stock scripts and make them work for your campaign, so that then you don't have to make a mod if that's something that you don't feel like doing. So you can check that out. That should be the 3rd link in the description. And then the 4th link in the description is going to be the link to Jay Barino's Discord server, where you can find Nekron and myself if you're interested in AI modding, or you want to know more about any of these, you want to ask more questions. That's a way to reach us in real time, where you don't have to wait for us to respond to YouTube comments. So that's just another thing to watch out for. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will answer any questions as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.